I'll try spinning. That's a good trick.
Well, that was random.
That was it.
Didn't see that one coming.
Well,
I
I
didn't
thought
see that coming.
I thought that this is a little meta. Whereas I could have done something, that was on topic for the podcast, and then I thought, I'll try spinning. That's a cool trick.
Yeah.
So I thought maybe if I just did my own little
Spin.
you expected me to go this way.
A little twist and
I
spin.
zigged
Yeah.
and you thought I was gonna zag.
Yep.
So now I'm just gonna fly my N1 starfighter right into the
Right
Trade
into the-
Federation starship and
and-
hop out of there, and that thing is
Call it a day.
called a day.
Save it for Mando.
And just hope that years later they change those guys' accents. That's where we're at right now.
That's where we're at
We'll
right
figure it out.
Welcome back to
Yeah.
the Star Wars Guys podcast. We are excited to dive into things. It's been a few weeks since we've all been here together,
I know we've got a lot to talk about.
we got some things to talk
Some
about, some new
opinions to
things, but
share.
also we got to review some stuff. We're
Oh yeah.
looking forward to hearing some of Uncle's thoughts about some things that are going on in the Star
Yeah.
Wars world. But welcome back. Appreciate you guys tuning in. As always, we are your hosts, Mike,
Hello there.
myself, Nate. Hello there. And you know him well, Uncle.
I have spoken. I thought
Oh, that was
like
good.
it.
mix it up a little bit.
I closed
have
my eyes. I thought
spoken.
Nick Nolte was sitting.
I
there
haven't
with us.
spoken yet.
Man, I thought we had our first guest.
There you go.
You ever notice how much it sounds like Natasha Lyonne a little bit?
Oh yeah.
I have spoken. And you
just
raise it up. I have spoken.
I love it.
No, I was good.
I
Natasha.
love it.
But yeah, welcome back. We're excited to get into some things. Mike?
Oh yeah. Some things we will get into. So last week,
Yeah.
Usually just throw it off. to him
last
to
week,
start.
Mike, lead us up.
last week, Uncle was not with us. Nate and I had a discussion that was a good discussion, but we kept thinking in the back of our
Great discussion.
Probably the best.
Probably,
ever.
look, it was a
One of
perfect
the-
discussion. Perfect. There was no quid pro quo.
No quo.
No quo.
No quo.
Very little quid. Which,
Little pro. Probably a lot of pro.
Quidditch is quite, frankly, my favorite sport when you look at it. With the magic, the boys that are playing with the magic. I never read the book.
No, I.
Here, there's a book.
That would be
Probably-
funny if at
probably
the end
a
of a
great
rant,
book.
it's just then I admit that I don't know what I'm talking about. I've actually, quite frankly, now that I think
I
about
have
it,
no
I might have
idea.
written the book, but also we don't know what. we are
JK.
quietly saying.
JK, I did not read the book. JK.
No, I actually didn't read the books, and I like those books. But our discussion from last week, we were wanting Uncle's opinions, though, and we didn't get to hear them yet, so we want to revisit a little bit of what we were talking about last week, starting off with the news that broke a couple weeks ago with the cancellation of the Acolyte.
Yeah.
We also wanted the caveat or to get out in front of the fact that some people also have a problem or don't enjoy people framing it as the cancellation of the Acolyte. I'm not sure if you've heard any of this, but some people thought that was maybe intentionally
Derogatory, like.
yeah, like it was taking a shot at like, oh, this is canceled. Of course, it was canceled. 'cause
Canceled
people
meaning
didn't like
canceled,
it.
Yeah.
not canceled like in the traditional sense.
And not well, and
not
also
going to
not
make another show.
and
No.
not cancel as in some people were saying like, oh, it should have been just the headline
Like-
should have been not renewed for a season 2
Oh.
because so some people were like, oh, canceled is usually like a show is going
Already in the works.
boom, viewership
cancel
is
it.
bad or word of mouth
We're
is
cutting
bad, and
it
so
now.
we want to be known it's canceled and we're stopping and we were going to do more.
Oh, okay.
Versus some people, and again,
We're
Nate and
not
I
going to
kinda
make
met
another
them.
one. Yeah.
Yeah,
Boba
so-
Fett,
So
season 2.
I mean,
they
you can
didn't
give
make
your
nothing.
opinion on that in general, but Nate and I were like, okay, either way you want to slice it, they're not making more. of
They're
it.
not doing
You can
another
frame
one.
it however you want. I mean, this, if we're being honest, this is different than like Obi-Wan not getting a season 2 because I think Obi-Wan didn't feel like it was getting a season 2
No.
based on the story.
It also
Yeah.
wasn't
Leslie Headland had said,
talked about.
if
Yeah.
when we do this, I'm saving these characters for season 2.
Yeah.
I'm saving this for season 2. It ends on cliffhangers with, Vernestra walking in to talk to Master Yoda and
Right.
those, obviously,
Yeah.
Plagueis being revealed, all of that stuff. But the cancellation, the ending, however we want to phrase it, of the Acolyte. First of all, before we get into the reasons why, just overall thoughts. How do you feel about the news that's officially no more Acolyte, at least on TV?
I was very sad about it. I understand it. I was very sad.
Yeah.
From a financial standpoint, I get it.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of money.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it
lot of money.
didn't appear that the reception was what we had all hoped.
Yep.
On the other hand, having said that,
Very happy to
I
be
think
here.
I think there is a way forward that maybe they could entertain.
Oh,
I don't know. It's hard to put the genie back in the bottle,
Mhm.
and once you set a budget for something, it's hard to. But they perhaps could set limits on it next time and say, "You got this much. Can
Yeah.
you do it?" I don't know. I was upset because of what so many things. I love the storyline. I thought it was an interesting. I think she swung for the fence in some respects.
Yeah.
yeah.
In two ways. One, we're telling a murder mystery within Star Wars, and it maybe
Yeah.
people didn't take it. But also by revealing that you're holding things, you're almost putting them in a
Yes.
tough spot because they
Totally.
if it wasn't said we're doing 2 seasons and you're now telling everyone that we planned for 2 seasons, it makes it look like they're pulling the plug when they
Yeah.
actually never said we're doing more than one.
Yeah.
Unless they did.
Yeah.
But I have heard that there are some plans for comics already about this.
Mhm.
You heard
I
this?
think I heard that for a couple
No,
of
but
the- for a few
I
of the
assume that
characters.
would
Yep.
would
I
happen.
wouldn't
Yep.
be surprised if a novel.
And there's some other comic news. I don't read comic books that much, but I
Yeah.
might because these sound really
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
There's some stuff that's going to happen after Return of the Jedi. They're going to revisit some things. But I was sad. I don't. We talked about this. We don't like to see things fail.
Yeah.
We just kind of want things to succeed. We're not rooting
Yeah.
for anyone to fail.
Yeah.
So when it did and something we love, it was sad.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
I agree. I mean, like you said, it was sad. I don't want to see it. I would love to see the story continue on screen.
Oh man, yeah.
But I get it.
Mhm.
I get it. It's business. And if the viewership was down and you add on top of that, even though I don't think it's justified, but you add on top of that a lot of the negativity, that's essentially 2 strikes. You also look at the budget and how much was spent on the show.
Right. That
And
makes
then
it.
equate that, and you're like, okay, that's
Mhm. That adds to it
that adds to
for
it.
sure.
So
Yeah.
I get
no, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. Yeah, I agree. I and we talked about this a little bit last week. I think that both things can be true. Like we said, as far as you can be disappointed. Like I'm sad when I saw the news that it was ending, and also completely understood it. And actually, I'd say like I expected it.
Yeah.
I expected
Thought it would
that
be.
was coming. So wasn't surprised. I wasn't surprised at all by the headline. It was more like I think we even texted about it. It was like, a bummer.
I know there's
Here
a
we
lot of
go.
people
Because-
fighting for it to come back.
I know, and I always
It's-
appreciate people doing that stuff. Trying to have it's always
Yeah.
important to have your voice heard as far as like, people. Especially
Well,
with,
make
like,
it known that
I was
you
gonna say,
do want those
and-
stories.
That's right.
with
Even
it-
if it's
at
not
least-
for this project,
sure.
then that does mean a lot for the next project.
Yeah,
Like it
that's
does
right.
show that there's
Yeah.
people that
Yes.
are going to and that are enjoying it.
totally,
Mhm.
It's
and
not
it
just
also
the loud negativity.
yeah, and it also in the modern days of streaming, it is sometimes, and again, I don't know all the ins and outs, but from videos and from articles I've read, it's hard for even these companies to really quantify viewership. It's a
Right.
very different business model now than.
Yeah.
than
I mean,
the-
we all got together with six people
yeah
and
we
watched it
we
on
had
one
fun
TV.
watching it each week.
Yeah.
So
Oh.
how do you
How do you, tell
can't
that?
How do you
you
tell
can't
who's
know that. Wait,
watching it?
it's for in the eyes of Disney Plus, it's one viewer.
Now, having
Right?
s-
I mean,
now having said all that, I think that it's likely that they're going to then reverse this decision. No, I don't. I don't think so.
Right.
But I think that it's still great for anyone who wants to, like saw like 70,000 or whatever it was signed that petition of like renew the Acolyte, and like those are things that like Disney gets wind of, and at the very least, it will, it allows them to get a little bit maybe more of a sense of, a lot of times the stuff you hear online are the loudest people, and the haters of the show were very, very loud. And
vocal,
again,
yeah.
it doesn't mean that everyone, like, again, do I think it's a perfect show? No. Do I even think it's like my favorite Star Wars show, or maybe even one of the top of the ones? To me, probably not. as far as compared to some of the other things.
Yeah.
But I really liked a lot about it. There was stuff I loved about it. There was a lot that I really liked about it. And then there was some stuff that I'm like, I mean, there are things with the show that I understand people struggling with because we talked about it. It made us struggle with it a little bit. And I don't mean the stuff that like people are like, oh, boycott the show over this or this. I just mean like literally the idea that I struggle with seeing the Jedi in this light.
Yeah.
That is a challenge.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've had Jedi characters before who are clearly breaking the Jedi code.
Yeah.
Are acting in self-interest. They're acting in their, to serve their own self-interest, and it is usually framed as that being outside the norm. This is wrong, and this is a little bit more of
flirting with the lines.
A little bit more of like, what if the whole institution is corrupt?
Yep.
And that makes you,
or a large portion is,
or
inept.
a whole
a large
section.
portion is inept, or even we've never seen it. We've seen in the past them making mistakes, but a lot of it is like them being blinded by. So Mace Windu being so
and
cocky or naive
right,
that it's too late until finally he admits maybe it's time to inform the Senate that their ability to use force is diminished.
Right.
Like even he then eventually has a realization like, dang, like we're not, and then even says to Anakin, if what you say is true, you gained my trust, but like it's too late, like because they've been fumbling the ball there. Where this was like, what if the Jedi accident make a conscious decision to cover it up, which is a step further than we've ever gone. So I get those struggles with it. Again, I think what the show did though is it did make even that, the way I just said that, is not as black and white as it. Like when you watch the show, it was very complicated. Like even to this day, you're still like, okay, I know Soul made bad mistakes here, but then also she's turning into
I'll be honest. Basil was the most confusing thing to me.
Yeah, there was some. There's some writing stuff that I think, I struggle with a little bit at times. But
that's all right.
But where this was leading into, we talked about last week, is I think that this leads to a bigger. And I've heard other people talk about it as well. I think Star Wars Explained and maybe even Force Center has talked about this a little bit on their podcast.
We talked a little bit about it
the
last
struggles and the challenges of the current, not just modern day Star Wars, because we'll talk about that, and we'll talk about the future of Star Wars on TV, but the current streaming and what it has changed in TV and the challenges and limitations that come along with streaming. And on one of these shows, I think it was on Force Center, Joseph was talking about he had a buddy who used to work for one of these streaming services and said, like, oh, you do know one of the challenges is that streaming services do not root for a season 2 as far as the executives, because season 2 is when the show gets more expensive.
Pay the actors more.
Actors have all the shows won awards. The actors are getting bigger. They're more expensive. And so the second season is always like, well, now we have to go bigger and we have to pay this person more and after that. And so a lot of these shows, a lot of these streaming services have decided we would rather have a show that's a one-off, that's a big hit. Great. Now go create the next big one-off hit. Great. Now go. And then because you can always be paying the people kind of.
Yeah.
And again, that's sometimes a more cynical view maybe of like, I don't want it to feel like they're just saying we're always trying to lowball them, but there are like, obviously, as Seinfeld got bigger, the cast makes more money. Like, that's a thing that happens. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And so there are some challenges in that go along with that, but also streaming in general. We've talked about before. I just don't like the streaming model of. I don't like the way that and again, I feel like this is felt in some Marvel stuff, definitely some Star Wars stuff, where it feels like because we are putting something on streaming, we are actually taking an idea that could have been a movie and just saying, now let's just break this up into 6 parts or 8 parts and put on TV, because I think that the writing then sometimes is weak in spots because it's not written like a television show sometimes.
Yeah.
So that's when we get some of those episodes in the middle of an Ahsoka or like Ahsoka's or Kenobi that feels like, man, this episode didn't have a beginning, middle, or an end. Like it feels like I clicked. If I'm watching
Pause, I
if
picked
I'm
it
watching
up.
my old school DVD menu and I just scrolled through and slid to scene number 21,
Found that spot.
that's it. And I
Yeah.
see that scene and then that's the end of it. So I know it's a long-winded answer, but any thoughts for both of you guys on current streaming, how it's maybe affecting
Yeah, I know we talked
shows, and
I
then we'll
know
get
we
to
talked
the
about this
future of
last
Star
week,
Wars.
so
But
I'm more curious what Uncle thinks. I know we wanted to get his thoughts on some of that.
I mean, I understand the business model's changed. We're not going to get the 7.
Yep.
We're not going to get Lost anymore. With
I wonder if
23
Star
episodes
Wars,
to happen.
as because when we see the movie, is it possible that Star Wars as we know it is difficult to put on television because television requires going deep into the characters.
Mhm.
But I don't want
That's not what Star Wars had been before.
the close. What do they say? Never meet your heroes.
Mhm.
The more I learn about Han Solo, the weaker he becomes.
Yeah.
It's the distance, it's the short, long view that makes them
More
our
mysterious.
heroes
and-
are heroes.
And what's the George
If I
Lucas,
go home, if
yeah.
I go home with Superman, he becomes less Superman.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If I see Darth Vader having dinner, it's less
Which we
intimidating.
almost did. I
It's-
would be honored if you would join
That's right.
us.
But the TV show, but
Yeah,
you can't.
totally.
The
Yeah.
TV shows are designed to go
deep.
inside of the characters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
But
George
by
Lucas
doing
was
that-
always the faster and more intense. Was
Yeah.
that's what
By
he's
doing
famous
that,
for
are
as far
we
as his
are we
directing style.
moving into an area that's Star Wars or even any action Marvel,
Mhm.
any action show is not. It does it lessen the thing by going deeper. Do I need to know Luke's motivation? Does that make it better or worse?
It's good.
Or
question.
knowing what-
Speculate.
It's
Yeah.
a different
Knowing that
thing.
Yoda struggled as a child, does that make him a better character or a weaker character? In some cases, it's going to make them less because we're going to find out things we don't want to know. I don't
Yeah.
want to know that Luke. Some people don't. I don't want to know that Luke failed.
Yeah.
That
That's an
ruins
issue
it.
people had with
I don't want to see the
Yeah.
Jedi be fooled.
Yeah.
I don't want to see that. At least in a week after week, we see it
Yes.
in the movies,
Yeah.
but we know how that plays out.
And in the movies, that's usually then resolved in that movie or in
Yeah.
the movie
Right,
that follows.
right,
And the
right.
good- And
Yeah.
in some ways, people,
Yeah.
I think we still want the hero to win, and that we don't need to know that he's struggling internally with his feelings
Yeah.
on some level. We just want to see him come in or her come in, save the day,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
keep it clean and simple. But you can't. A television show can't.
No.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
It's designed to go
Challenging.
deeper, and by going deeper, we lose the mystique.
Yeah.
Like part of the thing about Yoda is he never revealed where he was from
Yeah.
to keep
Yeah.
it. But if we have a show about Yoda, how can you not say where he's from?
Yeah.
So now we're taking that character and we're exposing things.
Yeah. I
that
think
will
Well,
make
it goes
them
back to
too
just the
less
It
interesting.
goes back to sorry, and then finish your,
I don't
your
know.
thought. It goes back to the idea of midichlorians in general. As
Yes.
far as why people had.
don't need to know that.
yeah.
problem
That's
with
why. That's why
midichlorians
people
is
didn't
that-
like it.
Is that people didn't like the fact that George was taking something mystical and
And
making
giving
it
it-
scientific
Yeah.
and like explaining like, well, this actually works because there's microbial beings inside each of you that react
Yeah.
this way, and then people are like,
And you can count
I
it.
want to
What?
just believe that like you do this because you set your mind to it. You can do it because there's
That's
this
right.
mystical thing going on. Versus, I have these innate abilities. I train them. I
Yeah.
hone them. I do it, and you're like, oh, okay, but that's something feels different. And then, sorry,
Yeah.
Nate, what were you saying?
No, I was just saying. I think also outside of just the storytelling aspect, because Star Wars is grand, galaxy, like you said, like bird's eye view, faster, more intense. Having a show with a lower budget, I mean, these shows have big budgets, but having them be, on a smaller scale when it comes to television versus a film,
Right.
I think naturally brings down some of that galaxy feel
Yeah.
as well.
It does.
Just from a visual standpoint.
Right.
Like when you watch a movie, part of what I'm looking forward to when we come have the next Star Wars movie is like looking at screen and just feeling like this is massive.
Mhm.
Like it just feels grand. And you do lose some of that in my opinion on some of these shows because you're more detailed. You're more deeper into it. It's not the galaxy scope, what's going on across everything. It's more what's going on here on Tatooine or what's going on, here.
That's right.
And I think part of that is somewhat why I liked some of the way they did the Ahsoka stuff, because it did feel a little bit bigger with the jumping to a different galaxy and all
It
that.
did.
But not even that wasn't the same scale as like a film.
Mhm.
And so I think taking that with the more detailed storytelling, diving into these characters with also just visually budget storytelling on a grander scale, kind of makes all of that feel like it brings Star Wars down a little bit to that level. But yeah, I know Mike had mentioned too, what does this essentially mean for the future of Star Wars television? It makes you wonder if there's a large majority of people that are not going to be satisfied regardless.
That's right.
What does that mean when it comes to spending all these money on TV shows? And now they've had successful shows. I'm not saying they haven't had any successful Star Wars shows. But I don't know if we'll see another investment in a show like Mando with like an expectation for a continuous story season over season. Or if they're going to just go in with the idea of, let's write a show that ends start to finish one season, and if it really like just absolutely crushes it and there's a huge demand for it, then at that point we'll come up with a way to bring the story back.
One of the challenges the shows have to do is to create an ending that's not an ending, but it is an ending.
Yeah.
It could stop. And what was the show that just did that? I can't remember. There's a show I was just watching. I go, that could be. The show Dark Matter. I know that there's more to this story, but the way it ended was kind of a resolution.
Yeah.
Sure.
You could see when they renewed it for another season.
Yeah.
But you could have ended there and not. There was a huge opportunity, but nothing left.
Yes.
On
Makes sense.
all of the stories were resolved, but we could go everywhere with this. There's so many things we could do.
Yeah.
Can you think of a? Well, first of all, I think one of the things they did with movies now, they don't know what they don't know what to do. I don't think they know what to do. They can't throw $200 million
like what
at a
story
movie
to tell.
Are you talking about Star Wars or just?
There is no property.
Yeah.
That is a guarantee anymore. There's nothing that's guaranteed. Like there's no director, there's no actor, there's no. It used to be back in the day. You go to the actor's movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tom Hanks is in it. It's going to make.
Spielberg's got a new movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That changed. And it used to be if Marvel's got a new movie, you go. It used to be if Star Wars has a new thing, you go.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise's last Mission Impossible, which I saw and I loved it.
Yep.
And the movies in this Mission Impossibles before that were crushing it again and going up and up.
Mm-hmm.
This had fantastic reviews. Made way less money than they thought on this
Yeah.
one, and everyone was like, "Uh-oh,
Nobody's safe."
Is this? Yeah."
And I
Dude,
think,
what
and
does
I
this
think in that they had television as a fallback.
Yeah.
Television had movies back in the 70s.
Yeah.
Television was, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. It started, and then movies were still like the thing. And then television was the thing. That happened in the Breaking Bad era,
Yeah.
2000s.
Yeah.
And then streaming, but now they don't know. But now the streaming stuff is as expensive or more than the movies.
Mm-hmm.
So it took that element. Now they've raised the game up to where people expect TV, Rings of Power. You expect TV to look like a movie, and when it doesn't, you're holding it to that standard now.
Yeah.
We never used to expect that.
No.
So now they're in a position where, in order to make a really good TV show, we got to spend. We can't do it for $10 million. We got to spend $80 million or whatever.
Yeah.
To make a TV show. They can't afford those kind of losses over and over and over. And so I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know. I think it's going to swing back to movies. I think that's what's going to happen.
I think it'll swing back.
If you
to
could
movies,
spend
and it
$160
feels
million on a TV show or $160 million on a movie, I think they would make the movie.
Yeah.
Oh
I
yeah,
think.
I think so too.
Well, and they've even said, Iger has flat out said that both for Star Wars and Marvel, that he feels they've done too much on TV, and that they are going to switch their focus back to cinema, back to the theater.
Yeah.
So
that solves the one season dilemma.
yeah,
The movie is
the movie is the thing.
Yeah.
that's a one season.
We
Yeah.
talked about this a little bit last week. If the price of all of this, and again, because the streaming stuff is messy, Netflix has had issues. There's a lot of these companies who are, and there's a bunch of companies, Paramount Plus being bought out by so and so. Like,
Right.
there's a lot of these streaming services losing money because they're
Yeah.
struggling with trying to figure out how do I, because
I need Steve Jobs is what we need.
That's who you
I need him to come back and solve this like he did the music.
Can we just de-age him? And does that work? Deep fake him?
True.
Get someone who looks like Steve
Hey,
Jobs?
chat. What would
Um,
Steve Jobs
At
say?
least get Michael Fassbender when he was playing Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
I'll take that. He was great.
He was great.
So my thoughts on the future of Star Wars television, and I think you hit on a great point here, because there's two kind of major things that are going on that are big struggles for, like, trying to thread this impossible, threading this needle. Not even talking about not even, like, take aside right now the fandom complaints. Because some
Trying
are
to put
valid,
things in
some are
the-
invalid, but, like, literally, if we just did the business challenge that's going on,
Mm-hmm.
not even just like, oh, we make a movie and then the fans are like, no, I don't want this time period. I want this time period or this kind of movie. We'll talk about that even later. But for the business standpoint, it is so difficult right now streamers are struggling because a lot of people subscribe for a show and unsubscribe when the show's over.
Yeah.
Like, I know a lot of people who
Yeah.
like get HBO or get Max because they're like, oh, I'm watching this Game of Thrones show, and after those 10 weeks, they delete HBO, and then 2 years from now, they do the same
so
thing.
many streaming options. You
Because-
can't. Nobody wants to have all
Right.
15 options.
And so what ends up happening is that's a challenge, keeping the subscribers. We've talked about it over the last couple of years how when Disney Plus took off, everyone was like, massive success, and then they're like, uh-oh, we're not gaining subscribers anymore.
Right.
What happens?
Yeah.
And then obviously prices keep raising with all of the streamers. That's difficult. But the shows and the production, it's very challenging because I do feel like we're in this position where it's impossible to satisfy what we want because we know Star Wars and all of us grew up, at least us here. Some people maybe have grown up with Star Wars as Mando being their first Star Wars, maybe a different perspective. But when I still think of Star Wars, I think of the big screen.
Yeah.
And I think of
Yeah.
that. So what ends up happening is, like Uncle had said, when we watch shows, we want it to look like Star Wars. We want it to feel big. We want it to feel vast. Now, what comes with that is we want it to look like how we see Star Wars in the theater, which there's a reason why George Lucas, because George had a bunch of scripts. He was doing all of this underworld stuff that he had written for a Star Wars TV show back in the early 2000s. And he had this thing with ABC, all these, and he wanted to do a Star Wars TV show, and he never got it off the ground because he said it would cost way too much money.
Mm-hmm.
He said he couldn't do it. It would not look like the way
wouldn't
he
work.
wanted it to work.
Right,
It wouldn't
right.
work. So he said flat out, Star Wars doesn't work on TV. I can't do that. I don't have the technology to do that. Then Favreau comes along and creates the volume. And then that was like, oh, we are solving a little bit of the issue. He made this,
Try and
made this
make it look
expensive
bigger.
technology. It's going to look really good. And then we also, production-wise, can do it fast because we don't
Yep.
have to go to Tunisia. We don't have to go on location to do
Yeah.
this stuff. And we can do it. And for a long time, we were like, whoa, this volume stuff is incredible. And then what ends up happening is, and I'm guilty of it too,
Oh, that's
we
volume.
then keep going and go, I can tell it's a volume. And it's like, like, okay, we have to kind of
Why
decide.
can't you ever be happy?
We have to decide,
It's
do we
true.
want Star Wars
Self.
on TV and accept that's going to be that's impossible for it to look like Rise of Skywalker?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not going to. Think about it. A film is putting in $250 million in a 2.5-hour movie,
Mm-hmm.
and a TV show is putting, even Acolyte, $180 million in, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah.
Like,
I
if
thought
you're
it was
actually
4, yeah.
looking at on-screen time of what makes final cuts,
Yeah.
these shows are obviously longer. Most of them, not all of them. Most of them are
It's longer than a regular.
are longer than a regular movie.
Mhm.
Andor's 4 times, which Andor was expensive, but that's one of the
Exactly.
things that Andor really did that's why Andor, I think it's one of the many reasons why people are like, Andor so far has captured something that they
Felt
really
great. It felt bigger.
like they nailed how it looked. It looked really good, while also having the longer stories for each week, 12 episodes, and somehow was able to do that. And they were hour-long episodes too, or like 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Compared
Right.
to Acolyte is 30 minutes. You get 8 of them. It's
So I'm
a
just
lot
saying, like,
shorter. It's
budget-wise,
just difficult to keep that budget in place.
It's
but-
difficult. I'm just comparing film to the TV too. Like the movies, there are bigger budgets. There are also bigger budgets for shorter screen time, which means the dollar per minute that they can spend on actual like what's going to be in the final cut
Yeah.
is also way larger to go. Like not only is the budget bigger, but the actual dollar per minute of screen time
Right.
is also way larger. Because even if they had the exact same budget, you're trying to fit a same budget into a show that's going to be longer.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot of things here, but I think that the model for streaming is not it doesn't quite work.
No. I think
TV
it's flawed.
worked because somebody is deciding on what this is worth.
Yeah.
And then when they decided that streaming is worth this much per month, then we're watching for that. Television didn't work that way.
No, you had advertisers.
The advertisers decided what it was worth,
Yeah.
and we got it for free.
Mhm.
They said, "Oh, there's a new thing. We're willing to pay this much for this much time to advertise." So money came in, and they made the show they put the money in. The show went on.
Yeah.
And they got
Yeah.
Yeah.
movies were very similar. It's transactionary. I pay you and I watch it. Streaming, it doesn't do that.
No.
I pay you a monthly fee and you decide how much content to deliver. You decide how much to spend on it. You decide how much it's going to be worth.
Yeah.
How much are you going to put in? And they're
based on somewhat inaccurate metrics.
And you don't know
of
who's watching.
Who's
No,
watching.
and that's the
Completely.
thing is because of that.
and people are
Exactly.
sharing passwords.
That's why
and
it's
sharing
harder for
screen.
it's harder
You
for
can't-
viewers to
Oh, it
share.
works.
Yeah.
It's harder for viewers to also share their love or promote. Back in the day, 25 years ago, 20 years ago even, talking about advertisers. Advertisers would they'd make a deal with a production company or with ABC, and this show would come on and they'd pay to have their stuff run during the show. In between seasons, there was instances, I was hearing about this the other day. There were instances where a show would be like, oh, maybe this will be the end of the show, and people would write into Coca-Cola and be like, hey, we love this show, keep it. And Coca-Cola, okay, like
We'll keep paying for it.
1,000 letters. From
We don't
this
even care if
town
it's
in
good.
Wisconsin. Like, it was great. Like,
But we
people
can
are-
quantify
we
how
can
this
quantify, people
works.
Like it. Yeah,
You buy it.
Yeah.
We pay
That's
for
it.
it. We keep going.
That's the
Doesn't
thing.
matter how many people are watching on one show because
Yeah.
they're not paying.
You could vote with your
Yeah.
money in a way that you can't do it now because
Because
Yeah.
you cancel your
can't tell.
$8.
That's it.
Yeah.
They're like,
And-
great. We were losing money on you anyway.
Yeah. And you
In
go
a way.
right, and you go to a movie with 10 people to watch a movie together. That's 10 tickets.
You're all
You
paying.
have a watch party to watch something on streaming, and it's one ticket because you're all
Right.
watching it for one subscription.
And you want to get a movie early? You pay $30.
That's it. Yeah.
I mean, that's a
Mhm.
cleaner model.
Yes.
You pay
Yeah.
to watch I make it, and you pay to view it.
Yeah.
And how do you quantify? That's also streaming is so difficult because, again, I know that there's the higher ups who have these algorithms trying to do it. But like a lot of people
Knowing
say
stuff.
right now that the most watched shows on every single streaming service right now, I think I heard this the other day, are shows from 20 years ago or older. Did you know that? Like the
Really?
most watched show.
Because they throw Lost back up and people
Because
go back
people watch
around.
Lost. I said like the number one thing streaming on Netflix is like old season of The Office or Peacock. It's like those. It's not whatever their original is. Even Stranger Things, which is huge for like a weekend, a week.
Yeah.
Squid Game, it's huge for a week or a month. And then the most watched thing on there is like Suits from like 10, 12 years ago.
or
Friends.
Whatever. Yeah. I
Seinfeld.
don't,
Like,
yeah.
the shows that people watch are still because those are the comfort shows that people are familiar with, and this is stuff
Yeah.
that they know what they're expecting, and that people spend their most time on the streaming service not watching new content, but watching shows that have
archive.
already come out. And that streaming in general, what's made streaming, what is the most enticing about streaming is knowing that something is there and is archived there. That
It makes
can
you
go watch
wonder,
whenever you
too,
want.
like-
but delivering new content is something that's always going to be a struggle because you don't necessarily go, great, I want to put on Netflix today and just see what's the new Netflix drop. I'm kind of like, if I click on the app, it's because I know I'm going there to go watch something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, what show? I look up, I Google first ahead of time, what streaming service has The Office on it? Oh, it's on Peacock. Okay, I'm gonna open
Go to
Peacock.
Peacock.
Go to
Right.
Peacock.
That's right.
So there's this challenge between.
And it makes you
know,
wonder
I
too,
think the
because
model when you're talking about it is just it's a flawed. Or
Something's
it's a
gonna have
and
to
this
change.
is I guess we can move on from this too, because I do want to talk about some Ahsoka season 2 and Outlaws.
Yeah.
But it makes me wonder, and this wouldn't be ideal because it would mean we'd all be paying more. But it's hard to justify what people like. What's the value of paying the subscription for the archive stuff versus the new?
Mhm.
It almost makes me wonder: is
They're
paying
two
this
different
is
things.
paying the subscription, whatever that amount is, whether they change it or keep it the same? Is there a business model there for them to say that's what you get for the archive stuff that's already there? The stuff that's been there for, even if there's an original, but after 6 months, that becomes part of the archive stuff. But then charging for any of it, like charging
for the week-to-week
for
stuff.
the bigger week-to-week new stuff that's like, you want to watch it now, you got to pay $10 to access it. After 6 months, now it joins the archived rest of the subscription stuff that you're already paying for.
Yeah.
Because people are still going to stay subscribed to Disney Plus for the Toy Stories and the stuff that's archived that's been around. Like you said, the comfort shows. People
Yep.
want to watch that stuff
Yep.
still. I don't know. Obviously, that would mean we'd be paying more.
Somebody's gonna have to pull the
stuff,
trigger
but
first.
it makes you wonder.
Yeah, because
It's
they're
a
not
big
gonna
game
do
of
one.
chicken right
It
now.
is.
It's
It's
just, they're all
The
they're just
Office.
like who's
Everyone-
gonna
No,
who's
don't.
gonna shut down, who's gonna quit first, who's gonna
Because
say
now they have
I'm
started.
losing enough money, I'm gonna stop.
Well, they have started going to the advertising.
They
They've
haven't.
all started going back to let's throw commercials back in now.
And that's not gonna do it. That's not gonna
Yeah.
work.
And then just charge more for no ads.
That's right. That could
Because like Amazon, they have ads on their streaming stuff now.
they do. I don't.
Peacock's got ads.
I think a lot of
A
HBO.
lot of
stuff
HBO
does at
stuff's
least
got
have,
ads.
like,
The only
one
ones I
early,
don't
maybe.
think do have like Netflix and Disney Plus.
Yeah.
A challenge too with all
It's
this.
gonna be
I
hard.
know we're kind of moving forward here with the Ahsoka stuff. Last kind of thoughts here. You asked like, what do you think happens? I don't want to be too grim. I do think that after, and we'll get to some Ahsoka season 2. I think outside of the shows that have already been announced, which are obviously we have Skeleton Crew coming, we have other than the shows already in production.
Andor 2,
And
Ahsoka
2 is
2.
a little further out because they haven't started filming yet or anything.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that. I don't think we'll get an announcement of another live action show
for a while.
anytime soon. Because I do think that I think that the company, for better or worse, I think that their decision, it sounds like, is okay, we're going to kind of give the live action TV stuff a break right now. Refocus we went away from the film and went all in on the shows. They now think that's maybe not making them as much money or it's not gaining the viewership, whatever. They're going to pull back from that. We're going to go back to the
Cinema.
films. And I think there's a reason why we haven't had they've pulled back on just the way they've even announced stuff. Obviously, a few years back, and Marvel's done the same thing.
Yeah.
If you notice this year at Comic-Con or this year, they talked about some projects. They don't give you the map
Talk about
anymore.
some big ones, but
Kevin Feige doesn't go up and go, here's the map of our next 5 years. And we have this and this and this and
Yeah.
this. They don't do that anymore
No.
because they're like, oh, maybe we're going to slow it down. We're going to we'll have a couple projects. We'll think a couple
Yeah.
projects ahead because it takes a while. We're not going to do one and then start from scratch and do another. We have a couple, but we're not going to say, this
Here's
is
the
what the
next-
next. Because Star Wars
I
has done
get
that before.
Yeah.
Makes
And-
total sense.
And I get it because Star Wars especially has had, especially on the movie side, has had some directors be on for projects, and then they fall out.
Yeah.
They fall off into this, and I get that Star Wars would be like at this point, and I feel it too. Like, let me know when a movie's coming out in theaters by basically at this point telling me that it started filming. It started filming, or that hey, here's the trailer.
It
Like,
used to be.
It used to be.
Look, there's a new movie coming on. It's on TV. I can see the trailer.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder too, as far as just kind of wrapping things up with this too. Is there any hope? I don't think there's much
For Frodo and Sam.
for Acolyte's
there a new hope?
return. Is it possible they continue these stories at some point? They come back to live action with some of these characters, but it's not an Acolyte season 2. It's a different title, and it's focused maybe on just one of these.
You mean like Plagueis
Pull a
gets
character out.
or
Either Plagueis or even just
Basil?
Basil.
The book of Basil.
But I mean, like something that's not the Acolyte,
Book of
but
Basil.
is an overlap with those characters.
Could
or
be
something.
someday. I think this is the end of shows for a while.
I do too.
I agree.
I think
Yeah.
that's it.
Other than what's announced, yeah, I agree.
I do. I think that's,
Andor season 2, Ahsoka, Andor. That's
Skeleton and Skeleton Crew.
Let's go. Everything
I think
that's
so.
done or in the works, they're going to finish. Andor's a nice, clean, simple season 2.
Yeah.
Yep.
Ahsoka will
And
probably be
Ahsoka's
done.
kind of.
I agree.
We'll talk about Ahsoka now because Ahsoka, I think.
Yeah.
I
Ahsoka
really do
season 2.
think Ahsoka season 2, with just the way the viewership stuff has kind of gone on the last few projects, I actually think Ahsoka season 2 is probably lucky that it's like.
Well, they've got
that's-
Hayden.
And that, well, I was gonna say that it's Filoni's
Internal.
That it's Filoni's like baby. Like Filoni is
Right.
Yeah.
Ahsoka's his character. It's his show that he wrote.
Yeah.
He directed some stuff.
We
in
got
it. Like,
Darth in the chat. Hello.
He was all
What's
in
up?
charge of that, and also it essentially, we think, at least how they've hinted that it also ties into Filoni's bigger picture movie thing he has
Right.
coming. Because if not, I think that so the news this week was that Natasha Leo Bordizzo, I think is how you say her name, who plays Sabine, had said on a panel at, I think it was Dragon Con, which is one of these like fan convention things that actors show up and they give a few speeches, then they sign a lot of autographs, and it's like kind of a fun meet and greet thing.
Yeah.
But she had said, she was asked about Ahsoka season 2, and she said, "Oh yeah, we will start beginning filming Ahsoka season 2 summer of 2025, because we have to wait until all the principal photography stuff is done for the Mando movie before we'll be cleared to go." And people took that a number of different ways. First of all, I'm thinking, okay, so if they start filming next summer,
That's not coming till
at
2026.
the earliest it's coming is 2026, which will then be a good 3 years in between. Which we again talking about streaming and business models. Back in the day, you would never have.
That's a
3
movie.
Years. You don't have. 3
That's
a
years
movie.
between shows.
Yeah.
You have
I
a movie.
appreciate that's on TV. That's a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The 3 years between movies is completely reasonable.
That's what a
how
movie
we grew up with
does.
Star Wars.
Yeah.
3 years.
A television show is you give me 36 episodes 1 year, and you come back next year and you do it again.
Yeah.
That's a TV show.
They're filming while the first season's airing.
24 episodes of The Office, 26 episodes. You do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every week you're on for a half an hour, and then you take a little bit of time and you shoot the next one, you come back
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
That's what we remember TV shows as.
Yeah.
And then in
it was.
season 4, you give us your whole 100th episode.
100th episode, and you
talk about it. And
Yeah.
You don't spend
It's
3 years and spend
3 years in
$180 million
between.
dollars and give us, because we are not invested in the characters after.
No,
It loses
that's the
too much.
thing.
Yeah.
It loses
I don't
what
know.
you just said there. It loses a lot of. I've felt this with other shows.
The morning
not even
show.
Star Wars shows. Yeah,
It took. I was
So
done. I didn't even
long.
watch it. I
No.
forgot who these people were.
For
Yeah.
which one?
The morning show.
because
I
I
thought
was.
it was
yeah.
interesting.
I thought it was too. I
lost
really
track of
enjoyed
him.
watching the first season.
Is Steve Carell dead? Is he? Wait, what? Wait, what?
Yeah.
He what?
There was so
Totally
much
forgot.
in between these. Again, even Stranger Things. I heard some people talking about Stranger Things.
I don't even remember who these
How-
people are.
Yeah, it's been it's gonna be like 5 years between the final season, 4 years between the final season of Stranger Things and when
Yeah.
the previous season, and before that it was a couple years before. It's been like
The
12
kids are
years
all
before.
so old.
They're all grown.
So
So
Yeah.
Ahsoka is going to be
Ahsoka is
26.
at the earliest 2026,
Oh,
which
man.
then means 2026 would be a big year as far as
It's
Star
gonna be
Wars,
a
because then you've got
massive
Mando
year.
and Grogu.
So by the time they do,
the December?
if they
Is the
wanted to do
December one?
season
Then there's
three-
a December film coming out too.
Cameron's gonna beat him on Avatar 4 by that
That's the
time.
thing is Cameron's just like
Yeah,
okay.
I thought I was slow.
yeah.
yeah.
I mean James Cameron will have done another full Avatar
In the
in the time that it
frame.
takes to get another season of Ahsoka
That's
out.
a movie.
Um,
That's a movie on
Yeah.
TV, isn't it?
and unfortunately, and I really like,
And I wanna
really
see it.
Love Ahsoka.
I'm dying to see it.
The Avatar, or
No,
Ahsoka.
Ahsoka, both
Yeah.
of them.
Yeah.
I love the Ahsoka show, and yet also it's going to be like 6 to 8 episodes, and like 3 years for 6 to 8
I
episodes
know.
of
It's a movie.
35 minutes of television each week.
Yeah,
That is a long.
Yeah.
it's 4
time.
hours. I get it.
It's 4 hours. Yeah.
Cinematic though. It's what we're doing.
By that
it's-
at
that's-
that
that's
point,
the hard
Hayden
thing.
will already have his own show, so him coming back
he'll
won't
be doing his own
It
thing.
We
won't
have
be
to
the
DH
special.
Hayden just to get him back to looking like Ahsoka season 1.
That's what we need.
Let's DH him back just to look like
True.
you did then, not even look like you did in the prequels.
We
True.
need a television show, a Star Wars television show, which is the day-to-day operations on the original Death Star. That's the show. It's a
Yeah.
comedy.
Yeah, it is.
It's like that. It's that Adam Driver.
Every once in a
SNL
while,
skit
Vader
where he's
passes
just-
by, but
yeah.
it's The Office. It's a reality show on the Death Star.
It is. It's the SNL
And it's
Kylo
every-
skit.
Yeah,
30-minute
it's-
episodes. We get 24 a year, and that's the show. People would go. They would hate it.
Do we have?
They would hate it.
Do we? When we think of, I like the idea. What do we think of? So when we think of Ahsoka season 2 now being this, like
Yeah.
starting filming next summer,
We're
what do you
definitely
and I
not getting
also
other
think?
shows.
Well, do you and I
No, what
also
are they going to do in
think?
between? There's no
What
way.
this also makes me immediately think of is how far off is this Dave Filoni movie?
Man.
Oh, I know.
2028 at the earliest.
If these things all
I
have
mean,
to
like,
happen before,
Man.
If there, and again, one thing that's interesting with this is, I think it's kind of a reminder that while Star Wars and Lucasfilm is under Disney, it doesn't have the full Disney machine behind every single thing that it does. Here's what I mean: Lucasfilm is still a relatively small company in terms of some of their other. I mean, I think the Marvel production company is bigger right now with what they're doing. And I think that with the use of the volume and some of the other stuff, there are some restraints or constraints or however you want to phrase it. It's interesting that she said that we have to wait until photography, like it sounds like a lot of the people who are working on the Mando and Grogu movie will then come over and do the Ahsoka stuff, which is interesting because it's like, oh, we can't even start with essentially an unrelated. Because I do think that the Filoni Ahsoka stuff is going to be very different than the Favreau movie Mando stuff, especially with Ahsoka now being in another galaxy. I don't think those two really connect a whole lot.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that they're
It
like,
could
oh,
be
we
just
can't
that-
start until they're
Mando's done.
doing that. And I'm
because
like,
they need
oh,
the characters,
interesting.
they need the cast, and they need.
But it's
But you're
interesting. I
right.
don't
There
know.
are
It's
connections.
a weird combination of movie, film, movie, with Mando, Grogu, Ahsoka, Filoni's movie, and all of that being tied into one story.
Right.
All of that being tied into one overarching, Imperial remnants,
Mhm.
Thrawn story.
I hate to say, my gut also says right now I don't think we're getting another Mando season of television.
No, that's
no.
done.
I don't think so.
I don't
No.
think anything
No,
new
like,
is going to
movie,
happen.
I really
No.
don't. I don't think that I don't think television wise. And again, I think that Ahsoka might be in jeopardy had it not been for it being
Filoni.
Filoni's
And
thing.
being
Yeah.
and essentially, I don't know the
And
story,
for the movie,
but
and,
for it just
like,
being
That's right.
crucial to the
essentially,
story.
like, they already have announced.
That's
they had
right.
Filoni come out on stage and say he's doing this movie. We're
Yeah.
excited. This is his first direction of a live action movie. All this stuff. If then they pulled the plug on that, people would just be like, "Oh no, they got
Yeah.
no plan." You have
Yeah.
all those people again saying that, but yeah,
Before,
it's tough. It's
Yeah.
not super encouraging the direction of Star Wars television or the future of Star Wars television, but again, to kind of put
if
a
it
button on
focuses things
if
back
that
on the big
means we're
screen,
going back and we get a movie every year, every other year, or even once every 3 years.
I'm sure people are like, if we're going to
Right.
spend $250 million, let's just make a movie.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Let's
I
just
know
do
we're
that.
wrapping up. that's the final thing I wanted to say. I'm glad you just
Yeah.
brought this up. I saw on a podcast, I think it was Matt Damon. It was really interesting. This is not Star Wars related, but it's the state
idea
of
is?
television and,
Yeah.
and film related. He had a really good, interesting interview. Someone was asking him about. They're referencing some of his previous films. And
Yeah.
they asked him like, how has streaming affected things? The state of
The Martian is
all
now on
this stuff.
HBO, I think, or
And he
or
said,
Netflix or something.
good movie.
Yeah.
He said, well, what people need to understand is the business model and the business has changed. It's a 180. It's completely different.
Yeah.
Streaming has completely changed Hollywood and the film industry, not just television, but it's changed the film industry. And he named some films. He's like, you said you were a fan of mine from this film. First of all, like, thank you. I appreciate you watching this. People ask me all the time, how come movies like that don't get made anymore? Like, like I'm thinking, like you mentioned, Steve Carell. There's like some of the Dan in Real Life is this quirky one-off
right.
Yeah.
comedy. Like a movie like that does not get made anymore because
No.
it's not going to make any money.
No.
And Matt Damon was talking about why do movies?
If it does,
he
it's
said,
gonna
get
go on
asked all
streaming
the
for-
time. Why
yeah.
do movies like that not get made anymore? And he said because streaming service killed the digital media. It killed the DVD, the Blu-ray, all that stuff.
That's all the back end money they
It's
make
killed
when
it.
Yeah.
the
He
movie
said so-
doesn't
Exactly.
win.
He
yeah.
said so. Back in the day,
Yeah.
you would get, you'd get a script, you'd sign on for a project, and the studio would say, okay, we're gonna make this film for $20 million, $50 million, and
we can
they'd
count
be okay
on.
with. We can count on it makes whatever it makes in the theater, but don't worry. 60 to 90 days later, we're gonna release it on DVD, and that's the second wave of all the money coming in.
That's right.
And so he's like, it didn't feel like it's all or nothing. Now it is. We can't do that because we're not going to make any money in the theater, and it is not that, and that's it. Like when it goes to streaming, we don't. Even a lot of the contracts and negotiations are not like, well, now you get a bunch of money. It's like the studio kind of owns that.
Mm-hmm.
They don't get a huge kick. They don't even usually get a huge bump in subscribers based on a movie added to the streaming service because there's
That's
so
right.
much already.
That's
Yeah.
right.
And so they're like, so what ended up happening is those middle of the line movies just kind of fall off. They don't make those anymore. And then the ones at the top either balloon up to, okay, we have to put everything into this.
We're
And
gonna
you
roll
get,
the
now
dice.
we're spending $300 million on this.
Yeah.
And this is either going to be
Your biggest success or your
Deadpool
last
and
movie?
Wolverine, and we're going to make
You're
1.5
gonna make
Barbie.
we're going to make
$1 billion.
1.5 billion, or this is going to fail in such epic fashion that filmmaker's never going to make another movie again.
Yeah.
Or that studio's never going to, they're going to pivot completely away from it. You're going to get
Yeah.
movies like
Yeah.
Black Adam, where The Rock comes out and he's like, this is going to change the hierarchy of the DC.
And
And
then
then
the
it
DC
flops, and then they go,
ends.
actually, we're killing the whole
You're
line.
correct. It did.
You're done. Yeah. And
Yeah.
so,
yeah.
so
no,
there's
DC's
just no
over.
margin for error anymore. Where
Yeah.
it used to
Right.
be like, it makes this much.
That's
okay,
true.
well then we'll put in. And sometimes he was even talking about the strategy, like, okay, a little underperformed in the theater. Well, let's really promote. We'll promote the.
We'll spend our way to
spend
success.
Marketing. We'll market it as far as the DVD stuff. We'll market that more because you can do marketing on the front end.
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
back end.
Right. Right.
He's like, now it's just now that's why you get companies. You get guys like David Zaslav, the head of Warner Brothers, who they killed the Batgirl movie because he was like, we literally will lose money if we put this out.
Because we got to keep paying for the
We're
stream
gonna
it.
keep paying for it.
We're not
gonna
gonna
have to
do
pay-
anything
We're
with it.
going to pay all the actors, kill the movie, so we don't have to market it and spend $150 million extra marketing this movie, and it's gonna be a tax write-off, and we're gonna pretend it never happened. And so it's just a
Yeah.
completely different business than
So-
it was
yeah.
then.
Yeah.
And so because that is like when you look at what's out in theaters, it's like either big this or something you've never heard of, and you're like, that. Poor
Well, even
movie's not
before
gonna make
DVD,
it."
they had re-release.
Yeah, you don't have
Yeah.
re-release anymore.
Yeah.
Wizard of Oz ran re-release
Yeah,
every
the-
few years.
Well, the stuff that is
Jaws
being
did.
re-released
Yeah,
are
the
the
movie, yeah.
classics.
That's right.
The stuff that's being re-released is Empires coming back to the big screen. We're like, oh yeah, I'll go see that.
Go see that. Right. I've seen it 100
It's
times.
not re-released and with more
Crazy.
current movies.
So it's
We'll
Uh,
have
It's tough.
next podcast. Come back. We'll have a solution for the streaming thing. I
Yeah.
got some stuff.
Yeah.
I like it.
We'll put together a top 10
And,
how we fix the movie world.
Real quick too, because I know we're gonna wrap up here in just a second. I know Uncle's been playing Outlaws. I want to get everyone's.
Oh.
KVS.
I want let people think we've been playing.
Is it
What do you
begin
think?
love online or hate? Where does it stand?
I
think
for
people
the
are-
most part. I think people are really liking it.
Yeah.
I've seen. I mean, there's always going to be some people. People are. There's never going to be like a perfect thing. So there's always some gripes about things. But for the most part, I think I've seen it's been pretty well received.
I would not call myself a hardcore gamer. Okay, just preface that. I have played Elden Ring. I have played Starfield. I have played games like that. Diablo 4 a little bit.
Baldur's Gate.
Played Baldur's Gate. I still like Minecraft, right?
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. Ark. I play Ark with my son all the time. That's still going, I think.
Yeah.
So, but I'm pretty easy to please for a lot of things.
You played
So-
Fallen Order.
Fallen Order, yeah.
Yeah.
Survivor, a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't. Actually, I need to go back to that. But so when I see like things that where the characters interact in the cutscenes, I'm not looking at it going like, oh, well, it doesn't look great, or the mechanic of it. I'm more interested in the vibe and the feeling of it,
Yeah.
and I think it feels great. And it's not 1,000 worlds like Starfield, but it feels vast.
It does.
And it's been so fun to step into this underworld. It's the most for me. It's the most immersive Star Wars I've ever played. Where I feel like I can do. I'm driving through Tatooine on a speeder, and you have to stop and get off the speeder. And as I'm walking through to go to the cantina in Mos Eisley,
Yeah.
I realize in this moment, if I wanted to, I could shoot all of these stormtroopers. I would die, but I could turn around with my blaster and shoot that stormtrooper as I walk through, and then maybe try to hide in the streets. If I wanted to, I could do that.
Yeah.
I don't, but I've
Yeah.
never had that feeling. And you come to where you're going into the cantina, you see that's where they park their speeder. That's the
Yeah.
bar there. That's the booth.
Yeah. That's
And you hear people saying, "Don't sit there. That's a bad luck seat," or something like that. Who was that? That was
Yeah.
it was a Greedo kind of character
It
that
was.
said,
It was. Yeah.
"Don't sit there. That seat has bad vibes," or something like that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
But it's
Darth in the
been
chat says I feel like
so
Outlaws was well
fun.
received. Yeah.
it's been a blast, and I don't know how many hours in I am, but trying to take my time and enjoy all the stuff and chase down all the side quests.
I
and-
saw one of these. I can't remember which one, but I saw one of these like, review companies, sites, whatever, had it as in the top 5 best Star Wars games of all time.
Really.
That's awesome.
That's saying a lot.
The
There's
pros
been
and
great-
cons I've read have been that the vibe is nailed. It's awesome.
Yeah.
But some of the mechanics they don't love. And there's some little things like you
Yeah.
try to do this and it goes there. But all games have those little
Yeah.
mechanic
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
I've loved it. What have you?
I completely agree. I loved it. My favorite thing's just the idea of the reputation and the different syndicates and
And the choices you can
getting
make.
to choose. Like,
Yeah.
am I gonna double cross the Hutts or am I gonna double cross the Pikes?
And it happens so often.
Oh yeah,
They'll be like,
everything you choose.
I was delivering cargo last night, and the droid that I'm flying with now says, "Okay, I have a proposition for you," and it pops up, and he's like, "You could deliver this cargo, or you could keep it and double cross them and make your reputation go up another way. What do you want to do?" And you're like, "Oh man, I get more money here. My reputation's going to go down here, but or withholding information or giving information.
Yeah.
It's so fun.
And you can get like intel
Yeah,
at different places. You can get intel, and then it's up to you. I can decide who do I want to give this intel
That's
to?
right.
Do I want to go give it to
you
Jabba?
can sell it
Do I want to go sell it to Crimson Dawn?
or keep it.
Keep it?
That's awesome.
And you get rewards and things for increasing reputation with each different faction. I think I maxed out Crimson Dawn. So
I just did too.
so I've got like unlocked all the stuff for that. Oh
Yeah.
my god, this is cool.
That's fun.
That's awesome.
It's
I
a
can't chime in because
blast.
I haven't played it
Yeah,
yet.
Darth
It is
said Rolling
canon.
Stone
That's
had
awesome.
it as top 4 Star Wars game of all time.
That's awesome.
And they're putting Knights of the Old Republic in there
They're
probably.
putting they're probably putting Knights.
The
They're putting-
original Dark
They're
Forces.
they
just
might
'cause-
even have
Forces.
Fallen Order in there.
And
probably
maybe
do.
the
Could
original
be.
Battlefront.
Battlefront's fun.
Battlefront
Yeah.
or like Battlefront 2 because they had like
yeah,
the
those
re-release
those
stuff.
are
There've
all.
been some
I mean,
good
there's
ones.
been some classic Star Wars,
They have been.
really successful.
Playing
Star Wars
on
games.
Camino. I've
So-
logged down 100
Oh,
hours
yeah.
playing
Yeah.
on Camino, and there's just so fun.
I just
playing in the rain.
you talk about the feel and the vibe, and it does feel big, even though, like you said, it's not Starfield or even like No Man's Sky, where it's just endless planets.
Right.
But when I'm on a planet and I'm on my speeder bike and I'm driving,
It feels
from
more
place
real
to
than either of
place,
those two
I'm
games.
like, I'm just like, when you're cruising out in the Tatooine desert,
It's the
I'm
best.
just like you just see an end goal. Like, I'm just going to this place. It's gonna take a minute to get there.
Yep.
But because of that, it feels big.
Hop on your speeder and
Like-
fly out into the dunes.
My
It's so
reputation
great.
with the Pikes is
In the garbage.
literally terrible.
I
It's
just
at
got
the-
it back
it's
to
at
good.
terrible status.
Yeah.
And so everywhere I go, if I'm on my speeder
There
bike,
she is.
yeah, I'm getting
Get her.
raided by Pikes that I have to just take them out on speeder. So every time which I like it. I don't.
Yeah.
I'm
It's
driving
fun.
from one place in the middle of a mission, and I'm getting raided by Pikes, and I gotta blast these guys on speeders.
You do
So we're
your
having a
adrenaline.
speeder bike chase,
Yeah, man.
and then you gotta get away.
It's awesome.
That's fun.
Dirty Pikes.
But-
It's been so fun.
Last button, and then
Been
we're
great.
out of here. Because you said Pikes, that brought me back to Boba Fett. I had teased earlier that Tamora Morrison had said a little something recently. He had said
Tune in next week.
he
and
was
we'll-
asked. He was asked about.
Tell you
just
how
take
bad
30
our
seconds.
reputations are.
He said Tamora Morrison unfortunately was asked about the future of Boba Fett, and actually if he is in the Mando and Grogu movie. And now
It's right. I did hear
sometimes
this.
people
Yeah.
say that and they're lying because they're trying
Mm-hmm.
to keep under wraps. Like Ewan McGregor forever was like, I'm done as Obi-Wan, and then finally he had this.
I'm done.
Ask me one more time, Kathy. Are you coming back as Obi-Wan? He goes, yes, and he was relieved.
Yeah.
He's like, I've known this for years, but it keeps changing
Right.
as far as a movie.
I am.
or
I'm
a
not.
show.
I am. I'm not.
Yeah.
Tamora Morrison, I do think, is telling the truth. Unfortunately, he said, not involved in the, or at least he's not received any call. Not involved in
For
the
Mando Grogu.
film, and that he said, unfortunately, I think that just the way that the show went, that they've decided to sideline that character and put him on the shelf for a little bit. Maybe he said some quote like, maybe he gets off the shelf eventually, but unfortunately, I think like that's all I know is there's no future plans currently.
That he
for
knows.
Boba
That he's
Fett.
aware of. Yeah.
So I think hopefully we can get some more Boba Fett. I mean, I think bringing him back after all these years would be fun to see him in more than just
yeah.
that kind of little, the Mando
He
cameo.
goes back to
essentially.
crime lord.
Yes. Turns out I made a mistake, and he just goes back, and he's just immediately never
Killing
mind.
was much more fun.
He's double crossing
much more
Mando.
fun. But so we don't have to get into all Boba Fett stuff, but just wanted to put that out there because you were talking about reputation and the Pikes.
They can. There could be
Yeah.
another Boba Fett character. Mando was a Boba Fett character.
Yeah.
It's true.
It could be another one of these guys. It's just like a ruthless.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I
it's
think
bounty
he's
hunter
gonna,
week to week. It's
I think
what it
he'll
is.
probably
What's
be
the
in
next
the
job?
Ahsoka
Yeah.
movie or the Ahsoka, not as Boba Fett. He'll be there as Rex, or he'll be there as
Yeah.
like
True.
he's
True.
Tamora Morrison
Yeah,
is going
that's
to
right.
keep popping up because
Oh,
he's
yeah.
Tamora Morrison. He's
Yeah.
playing all these guys. So
It was great.
even in the Ahsoka flashback, come on, and he's like showing in the Clone Wars
Yeah.
thing. That was
Yeah.
cool, just seeing
Oh yeah,
seeing Rex right there and hearing his voice.
it was
So
awesome.
That'd be cool. Nate,
Yeah.
where can the people find us?
Well, as always, thanks for tuning in. If you made it this far, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, smash the notification bell. Tell a friend about us here at Star Wars. We love talking shop. We love talking about the future of Star Wars, and we're looking forward to things. We're looking forward to. I'm looking forward to most of the movies, the big screen coming back, but I'm excited for Andor season 2, Ahsoka
Yes.
season 2,
Skeleton
Skeleton Crew.
Can't
Skeleton
wait.
Crew looks good. I'm
Looks
ready for
awesome.
it. I'm ready for it.
Amblin vibes.
Yeah.
Bring it
So-
back.
It'll
And
be
a
good.
new animated show at
That's
some point,
December.
I'm sure. So we're looking forward to it. Thanks for
Oh, the
tuning
Lego
in.
Star Wars comes out in a few days.
That's right.
True.
We are
almost forgot.
so bad.
Just a
I'm
few
excited for that
days.
too. They've got. I went to.
We'll be talking about that next week.
Yeah.
Running through Target and Walmart. I've seen all the what is it? What's it called?
Build the Gal-
Build the
re- rebuild
Galaxy.
the
Rebuild the
Galaxy.
Galaxy.
Rebuild the Galaxy stuff. Like they've got a
Dark
big.
Jar Jar.
They've got a Falcon Lego about that big, and
Man.
but it's dark. It's the black.
Oh, that's
it's the
awesome.
black Falcon.
I
So they
want
got all
those
the
AT-ATs with the
basically all the merch
Rebel-
they've ever had in
uh,
Star Wars. They now get to flip the colors around and
Yeah.
resell everything.
I mean, it's
Huge.
genius for marketing because
Oh,
every time they
man.
come out with like a new show, like
especially
this is,
Lego.
this is Obi-Wan with the longer beard and the dark robes, and they immediately go, here's a black figure for it. Here's
Right.
Here's this
Yeah,
Black Series.
Black Series.
Yeah.
The dark.
Here's the
yeah,
Lego
right, right.
set.
Now for this, it's like cool. We'll literally make
And literally
Darth
being
Jar Jar.
Lego.
We're gonna do this, and with Legos, now it's like Dark Ray. Here's an actual
Yeah.
character. Here's Hippie Luke. all this
Rebel
stuff that's coming.
Rebel TIE fighters. Like they're just gonna
Yeah,
have
give me the-
endless stuff.
Give me the Akbar. Give me the Akbar.
That's a trap.
troopers.
That's a trap.
Remember they
Trap,
all pop
trap,
up.
Yeah. So,
So great.
looking
Can't wait.
forward to it. It's gonna be fun. Yeah. I
We'll
forgot
cast
about that.
about that.
So we'll catch you
Oh,
guys in the
for
next
sure.
one. And as always, may the force be with you.
I want everyone to listen to our podcast, not just the men, but the women and the children too. They're animals. And I want them to listen to our podcast like animals.
Like
Animals
animals.
listen to podcasts?
They do. They're just.
I need them. I need their viewership.
I am smoking.